I need to have a look here too about sharing the screen. Do you want to try it?
Sure. Now we have Paul Richard. Is he just on hold?
I'm not sure. He's got his camera off and his mic off.
Okay, maybe he just
Richard
will join
Paul.
us at 7.
Oh, hello.
Oh, I'm here. I just
It says that you.
working.
It says that the host is disabled screen
Okay.
sharing.
Here, we'll try now. Give that a try. How are you?
Good.
Good. Thanks for joining us.
I didn't think I couldn't find the link for the life of me.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then it turns out I just had to press more and it came down. It was,
Oh, right. Okay. Okay.
it was one of those things where I didn't notice right
Sure.
away.
Mhm.
Yeah, you have to go down a bit. I hope other people can find it.
Did that work, Veronica?
Yes, it did.
Oh, okay, good. Okay, so I am recording it as well. I've turned it on. It doesn't matter about our chatter because we can modify it, but I've just turned it on so that I don't forget, because inevitably I will forget.
Richard, can I ask what kind of business you're in?
Income tax, bookkeeping, that kind of stuff. So
And
I go into companies and help. Sorry, I do consulting as well. So setting up companies, and in some cases help them to bring them up to speed on health and safety as well. Not a lot, but just I want to know what's going on
Yeah.
to help advise them.
And it changes so quickly.
Yeah,
It's very fluid.
I know, because I got chosen or voluntold to be the COVID health and safety officer at work. So any changes, I've got to be aware of what's going on.
Mhm.
So what links do you have them notifying you?
Mostly I'm hearing it from the government, and then my wife, who's a nurse,
Mhm.
and but Simcoe County, whatever, Simcoe Muskoka District Health
Yeah.
Board, they do really good press releases, I'm finding. So
Yeah, I agree.
and
They do.
and some of it's common sense too. In what I see, common sense anyways.
Not everybody has it.
That's for sure.
Or they just don't agree with the other person's
Yeah.
common sense. So
Exactly.
let's see if well, we've got a few minutes.
Yeah.
So you got voluntold, Richard.
Yeah.
No. And do you have other health and safety background?
No. Well, no.
Okay.
I picked up some on the spot.
Yes.
That's about it.
And that tends to be what most companies do. They want you to do your full-time job that you don't have time to do, and then say, here's the health and safety part that we want you to do.
Yeah.
Right. And it's a lot.
It is. It's not fun. No,
Mhm.
by any means, it's not fun. But before I did income taxes and bookkeeping, I worked actually in a manufacturing facility where things were like, it's pharmaceutical company, which health and safety was very much a factor.
Oh, yeah.
Like even today, I still don't wear a wedding ring because I used to work there.
Mhm.
And the reason that is because of the static electricity of the machines that we're working with.
Yeah.
So
As well as the
Yeah.
possibility of getting it caught on something. Right?
Yeah. And then I just got into the habit of not wearing it after that.
I found that over the years, as I did health and safety, it became who I am, not what I do. So it doesn't matter where I am. I can always see where there's a mat that you could slip on, or a cord you can trip on, or and so whether it's social, recreational, whatever it is, I still find it's who I have become. And
just like me in bookkeeping and accounting and income tax. It's like, that's a tax deduction. Do you know about that?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Just, I'm going to mute myself for a minute. Hold on.
Sure.
Sorry.
Are there any questions in particular that, since you're here, that I could make sure I address as we go through?
Nothing that comes to mind. I'm just here to listen at this point.
Okay. And is it more COVID or just generally?
General.
Okay. All right. So
Maybe
I am
not so much.
covering.
Yeah, the general stuff, not COVID related, because I think COVID's it's gonna die itself out eventually, and a lot of it has been taken care of by the health unit, I think. Like most of it.
It's amazing
Not
how
every-
many fines they keep giving out when they do their blitzes.
Yeah.
People are missing something.
We actually in Barrie had bylaw enforcement come through, and they found nothing wrong with us
Good.
because we were doing the best we could under the strange circumstances that the Canadian government put us under to do income tax. So.
And
We were
the
all-
timing wasn't good because that was when the variant was at its strongest, wasn't it? When you guys were the busiest.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So we had to do, mostly it was Zooms, phone calls, and drop-offs. So
That's how I did mine.
Yeah, me too. Drop off, pick up.
and
I
we're
didn't even
still
do
behind.
that. You are
A
behind?
lot of people have not filed still.
Yeah.
So anyways,
There was the feeling that we were going to get more time, but maybe that was last year. I think that was
Yeah.
last year.
they needed to collect the money in order to pay it back out. No, but I guess part of the reason why I'm on this is because I do have an part-time employee, bookkeeper, that I'm trying to, I want to make sure I'm doing everything right as well. But he's not even in my office. He's at his home office. So it's kind of a moot point at this point, but in future, I want to make sure.
And is he a subcontractor or an employee?
Employee.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's the WSIB side signing up and making
Yeah.
sure. And lots of times when the Ministry of before COVID, when the Ministry of Labor would come in and say, we're just going to check your first aid training and your first aid kit. They're really in there to make sure that you're paying for every employee that's working there, that there are no contractors that they're not getting their
Yep.
money for, right? But
Yeah.
lots of times contractors think they're not employees, but they really are.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure if that's what I'll be covering in our presentation, but
No, I know.
you still don't want them getting injured. Eventually, will they be under your roof, under your business roof?
Probably not in the next year and a half.
Okay.
But within 2 years, I hope to find a place within Stainer, which is not an easy feat, for rent, for like an office. So, yeah.
I live in Stainer as well, but I've been here 4 years and I don't notice, well, we're all Stainerites.
Yeah.
Right? So I deal with Claire Weston. I don't know if you have a real estate agent that she rents quite a bit out on the main street. So,
Yeah.
yeah. I don't know if we're going to get anybody else to join us today with the hot weather. They're all sitting out on their back deck having a little beverage.
Yeah, I was thinking that earlier today, actually, when I was driving between clients, I thought, uh-oh, good weather means bad turnout.
Yeah.
Well, we
Richard,
can get started if you want.
Pardon?
We can get started.
Okay, well, Richard, you're a solo audience, so I hope this is worthwhile for you.
I'm sure it will be.
Veronica, I'm just going to do a quick introduction, okay? For you.
Thank you.
So, and you're welcome to put your slides up whenever you're ready.
Okay.
So a business that encourages and supports safe work practices into its daily work routine can realize savings in human and financial costs. With over 20 years experience as a safety professional and a real passion for keeping workplaces safe, Veronica founded Safety Diligence to help simplify safety for small to medium companies. With a vision to help reduce risk, eliminate harm, and increase wellness, Veronica offers peace of mind for employers. So I also want to just remind folks or let them know that this is also sponsored by the Small Business, South Georgian-based Small Business Enterprise Center in Collingwood. Take it away.
Okay, well, share, whoops. Don't know what that is. Share my screen. Oh,
I'll let you know when we can see it. Yeah.
yeah, okay, let me just get it going.
Perfect.
All right, so I have been introduced, but the purpose of this is to know about health and safety compliance in the workplace. And yes, I've had this business for over 20 years, and I do like working with smaller businesses because larger businesses can afford a health and safety position in their companies, but the smaller ones, it's just way too much money for them. So I am going to go to inspections because that's very big right now. They have all these blitzes, and as you said, you had I forget what frame of the government went in to see your place, but there's all kinds of ministry officials working together to do these COVID blitzes. But generally speaking, the Ministry of Labor inspections are generally unannounced. They just show up to your workplace. They don't have to be announced. They don't have to have a reason. They can just drop in. It's French law, meaning you're guilty until proven guilty or innocent, where our regular law is they have to prove that you're guilty, but not in health and safety law. So there's not much chance if you want to say, but I didn't know. That isn't a good enough defense for them. And when they come into your workplace, they're going to, okay, this I'm going to talk about non-COVID times. Generally speaking, they come in and they want to see that you are following health and safety compliance issues. So if you're not, the first thing they usually do is give you an order and give you what it is they want you to do and have done by a certain time. If that doesn't happen, then they will give you a fine. If you still aren't going along with them, then they will charge you. Okay, so generally speaking, it's just orders, and they don't give you a whole lot of time for those orders. I have worked with Ministry of Labor officials for companies, and it was almost impossible to get some of those orders done in the time frame they gave. And they truly do not care whether they put you out of business or not. They just want you to obey and to have a safe workplace and follow all the rules. And if it's a short time frame, sometimes you can get them to lengthen it, but generally speaking, they're pretty tough. And then why your location? So especially in construction, it can be that they just drove by, or if you're having something delivered and they don't like what they see. Oops, I'm sorry. That I thought I had turned it off. As you were saying about recording, and here I am forgetting to do this. So can we stop for just a sec or not? No. Sorry, it's a new phone. It doesn't work. Okay, so why your location? Sometimes it is because you have had injuries or you've had a phone call by somebody at the workplace that indicates that they don't think it didn't turn off. Can we, is it possible to put this on hold? So as I say, it's part of why is it your location. In non-COVID times, as I say, it is more about if somebody complained, if a worker is unhappy, if if they just happen to walk by and see something they don't like, if you're having any kind of renovations or construction going on, they're very likely to just show up. So there's any number of reasons, but again, they don't have to have a reason, and they can just show up. So what will they be looking for when they get into your location? So they want to make sure that you have either a safety rep or a safety committee. Now, if you are under 5 people, you just have to be the one aware of your health and safety due diligence and obligations. But if you have 5 or more employees, then you should have a safety rep who has had a bit of training. If you have more than 19, then you have to have a joint health and safety committee. But if you're operating with designated substances like lead, let's say, then you do have to have a safety trained person through the certification. So with the Joint Health and Safety Committee with 19 or more employees, there would be one person from the worker side and one person from the supervisory or management side who have to take a course. And the certification one, well, there's different places to take it, but it's about a 5-day course for certification 1. And then depending on where you take your certification 2 and how many hazards you have, then it would be another 2 or 3 days. So up to 50 people, you just need one supervisor and one worker rep. But once you hit 50 people, then you would have 2 and 2. But only the original 2 need to be certified. The rest can be on the committee without this 5 to 7 day training. The other thing they look for, and the way they find out whether you have these committees in place and whether you are following what they want as guidelines, is they're going to ask for your rep to start with. They'll come in and say, do you have a health and safety rep? And then that rep will follow them around. Then they'll ask if you have a bulletin board, and they'll go to the bulletin board. And I have seen this time after time after time. If you have what you should have on your bulletin board, they are going to be very easy on you. If you don't, they will go over your company with a fine-tooth comb and look at anything and everything. So what's on the bulletin board will tell them an awful lot about whether you have an existing program or not. And then, of course, if it's a COVID inspection, they have a whole other set of criteria that they go through, which I'm going to be talking about in a few minutes. So they want to see if there's an assessment, whether you have sign-in, whether you have the proper postings, and if you have a COVID program. So this is a whole list of the postings that you should have on your health and safety board. So if you have a health and safety committee, you should have your certified rep should be doing monthly inspections and have it written down and posted. Then your joint health and safety committee should be meeting quarterly, and there should be the minutes from that. And then they'll be looking to see if you have first aid trained workers on every shift. And then whether your upper management has a safety policy and is it being signed and looked at annually. And then again, going to the COVID safety plan, do you have a current safety plan for COVID? And is it fluid? Meaning, are you changing it as the rules change, as things change in your workplace? So it's not enough to write a plan and then let's say the date on it's January 2nd and you haven't changed it or looked at it again. They want it fluid. They want you to keep up with it. Now, what's been new in the last few years is having to post your violence and harassment policy. And there are 2 different policies. So there's a violence policy and program, and there's a harassment policy and program, which now includes sexual harassment. And so you have to have that up on the bulletin board as well to show that you have a program in place. Now, the Green Book, the Occupational Health and Safety Act, is to be posted as well. Now, it can be the actual Green Book, or if you want to print it off on your computer, you can use that too. There's these other posters, and I have some pictures as we go along. Health and safety at work poster, or prevention starts here. Then there's the in case of injury poster, or they also refer to it as 1, 2, 3, 4, and the employment standards poster, because our occupational health and safety also has the employment standards within it. So here's a few of the posters. So there's your 1, 2, 3, 4, or in case of injury. Health and safety at work, prevention starts here. So all that we should be doing to prevent accidents. And then in case of injury or illness, what's the first thing to do? Get medical help. Make sure you document what happened. The company needs to report that to the WSIB. And then you work together to find out why there was an accident and what you could do to prevent it in the future. Here's some more. So there's your a copy of the green book. And they do change things periodically. So you do need to update it every few years. And then what you need to do to know from the Ministry of Labor, so your employment standards. And then there's the first aid requirements. So depending on the size of your company, your requirements are different. So how many you need first aid trained, what kind of first aid training, and what you need in your kits, your first aid book kits, and how many in how many locations. So training, there's quite a few things that you're obligated to have done. So awareness training. Now, Richard, do you remember taking awareness training? Be a few years ago, probably, but awareness training is a free training given by the WSIB, well, the Ministry of Labor, and through different companies. It's about an hour long, and they want every worker in Ontario and every supervisor in Ontario to take the training. And I have to say, in over the 20 years of working with health and safety, this is one of the smartest things the government has done. And instead of the only people aware of what health and safety is all about in the workplace being your committee members, now everybody has a taste of what they need to do for health and safety. So it's a one-time thing. And if you have your proof, your certificate, when you change companies or go elsewhere, you don't have to take it again. But it is worthwhile. And it's probably worthwhile as a reminder. And it is free. It is a free training from the ministry. Then again, if you have health and safety committee and you have over 19 employees, then you need to get one member certified as a worker rep and one member certified as a management rep. So the Joint Health and Safety Certification 1 is given by the Ministry of Labor. There's several people, and there's some in Barrie here that offer it. So that's more the law, and then there is Certification 2 training. So you have to, once you've taken the Certification 1 training, then you take the 2, but the Certification 2 training can be given by anybody really that is a knowledgeable person of what your hazards are. So you do a hazard assessment in your workplace. Now, being an accountant, it could be repetitive strain, right? It could be your neck, your wrists, things like that. So that could be your one hazard, or it could be slip, trip, and fall, depending on the parking lot, things like that. So it's specific to what hazards you have assessed at the workplace, and then you take the Certification 2 training for those specific hazards. Okay. And it used to be that you took this once and that was it. Not anymore. It has to be, well, the Certification 1 has to be redone every 3 years for the Joint Health and Safety Committee member who has been fairly recent at it. Like, for instance, my training is quite old and I don't have to take it. I've been grandfathered, so I don't have to take it again. So you would have to find out when the person took their training and whether they need to be updated or not. Now, WMIS training, depending on what chemicals and noise, vibration, things like that. So that is according to again, what your hazards are, if you've got chemicals in your workplace, and how much you're working with these. A company can decide whether it's every year, or every 2 years, every 3 years, depending on how serious the situation is. But of course, if you have new employees, in their orientation, they should have WHIMS training about the hazards, the chemical hazards, the noise hazards, things like that in your workplace. Okay. Now there's first aid training, and it again depends on the size of your workplace. So that it's very specific actually as to what you need. But that is something they do look for, is the first aid training and keeping up with it. And again, it's one of those courses that everybody should take. The first aid training is so valuable in your home, in your recreation, with your parents, with your children. It's just a really good process. And I always try to talk companies into training more people than what the Ministry of Labor is telling you have to have, because if the person's away that has been trained, or if they're the sick person who looks after them, or if somebody quits, and that's the other challenge with any of your members of your health and safety committee with first aid training, you want to make sure the people you choose for that are people that are going to stick around and stay with you, because that's a very expensive project for companies, because they lose productivity from them for so many days, and then the training itself is fairly expensive. So you want to make sure that whoever you're picking to be trained is somebody that's going to be staying around. Technically, the worker rep should be chosen by the employees. The management rep should be chosen by the management. But just as you have found out, Richard, lots of people get voluntold that they're on the committee. And then, as I mentioned before, violence, harassment, and sexual harassment training. And there are specific documents that go around to ask each worker whether they feel safe at work. Are there any issues? There's supposed to be an assessment of the workplace to see if there's any areas that might be hidden from somebody and could be a problem. So there's the assessment that has to be done, and then there's the training that has to be done. And I've done a lot of this training, and it is amazing how many bullies are out there, and they don't even know they're the bully. And so I've had great success with, once people take the training, that it's a more harmonious workplace, especially when the bullies realize what they're doing, because most of the time they don't know. Okay, so it is a really valuable program and training. And then, of course, COVID prevention training. So we will go through that. Although, okay, we will go through that. No, we won't. I seem to have the wrong program up here. Okay, so COVID prevention training. I think a lot of people already have to do it. There are quite a few companies that are only open for curbside right now. And when they open up again, they have to make sure that people are wearing their masks. And that's an issue. I have a couple of my accounts where they have people coming in, their car dealerships, and they have people coming in saying, I don't have to wear a mask. You can't make me wear a mask. So it is a private company. They do have a right, but they do have a right to say, well, then we're not fixing your car. But of course, that's pretty hard to do in reality. But you have the right to tell someone, you're not coming in here unless you're wearing a mask, right? And of course, then you train everybody that if they have any of the symptoms, then they need to stay home, let you know, go get tested. And each company will have their own program as to how they're going to handle that. I know the Ford government is supposed to be putting something together, but by the time they put it together, we'll all have had our 2 shots, I think. So, but you want to make sure that you have the prevention training, because when the Ministry of Labor walks in, the first thing they're going to look for is signage on your windows. Then saying you have to wear a mask, you have to keep your distances. When a customer would walk into that location, is there an assessment there to say, have you been out of the country? Have you had any fever? All this kind of thing. And you want to make sure that those are being signed and kept. And then there should be hand washing facilities, whether it's sanitizer or taps. And then on your health and safety board should be your COVID program. And that is very specific to each location. And I have written several of them. However, if you go onto the province of, well, actually the WSIB website, you will find samples, but it's pretty in depth. And as I say, you do want to make it fluid. So if, for instance, before our latest stay-at-home order, a company still had people working in the office, and now things have changed and they're going to work from home. That should be reflected on this COVID program, and which jobs are able to be done from home, and those that can't be done from home. What have you done to secure the safety of your workers? Okay. And what they really are looking at is lunchrooms. So they have discovered that lunchrooms are where a good majority of COVID has been spread. And so there's limits to how many can be in there. They want you to schedule the lunch times so that you have the minimum amount of people in there at the same time, and that, you know, they might only be able to stay in there for 15 minutes and no longer. And then I have seen some orders where they have in a lunchroom that would seat 6 people, there's plexiglass put up, so those 6 people have plexiglass beside them so that it's safer. But it is, you know, it is everywhere. Even that's why restaurants are closed, because as soon as you take the masks off to eat or to drink, then you're yakking, then there's more chance of spreading of the virus. Okay. All right, so I'm going back now to, we talked about certification 1 and certification 2. So certification 2 for your health and safety committee is after you've done a workplace assessment of your hazards, then we find out what's there that we need to have training on. So these are just a few of them, but these would be some of the things that you would be taking as workplace specific, but also you might be doing with your orientation training when you're first training somebody to make sure they work safely and don't get hurt. So ladder safety, whether it's at work or at home, it's a biggie. It's amazing how many injuries there are from improper use of ladders. Working from heights, there's lots of companies out there that do a great job of training for working from heights. And of course, if you fall, you have a pretty serious injury. Okay. Slip, trip, and fall hazards. In my history of working, that's one of the biggest injuries that we have found, especially in wintertime when people are in your parking lot and get out of their car and away they go. Designated substances, there's a list of them. Like I said earlier, like lead, for instance. If you have any of these designated substances, there's all kinds of programs. For instance, in the car industry, if they repair like a body shop, they have a body shop in their place, they have a designated substance that's the hardener for the paint. And so there's a whole set of rules for that. And there's even a green book for it, okay? Okay, so I mentioned earlier, you know, with accounting or whatever, it could be, well, any office work can be repetitive strain or MSD. So you do an assessment to see what the repetitive strain jobs are and what can be done about it. So sometimes it's making sure that people are taking enough breaks, that you, especially if it's on a line, not so much as we're doing working from home, but if you're on a process, a line where you you're doing the same thing hour after hour, then you want to try and switch those jobs around and make sure that it's not the same part of your body that's getting overused all the time. So there's training for that, and it has to be workplace specific. Mental health awareness is huge now. So I think you're going to find there's going to be more and more training in the workplace for mental health awareness, and especially through COVID, it certainly is affecting us. Isocyanate training, well, actually that was the body shop. And then depending on your workshop, there's more. Okay. All right, so, okay, the COVID cleaning. All right, so if you're opening your place or you haven't been shut down, you want to clean regularly touched items, clean your tools before and after using them, clean the work surfaces off. And I mean, that's even true in our home and our, when you go grocery shopping and come back, you want to make sure everything's cleaned off. Any equipment you're using, make sure you're wiping it down before and after the use of it. Wash your clothes as soon as you get home. I don't know how many people think about that when they're out in the workplace. Wherever possible, use your own tools, because then you know that they've been cleaned and that you're the only one who's touched them. And you want to limit the number of people using your equipment, if at all possible. And then if you're renting supplies, make sure you clean them when they come in and then clean them after you've used them. Retail transactions. So these would be more of the curbside pickup. So you want to minimize the transactions by having customers prepay, if at all possible. If possible, use cashless payments to limit contact. You want to clean the keypads often if the people are, when the people are using their cards, you want to make sure you're cleaning that keypad. If you're loading their car, ask the customer to open the car remotely. Make sure that the pickup locations are well marked so that people understand where they should be. And ask the customer to stay in their vehicle when loading the order, if at all possible. Now, here's some signage for your COVID. When the Ministry of Labor walks in, they're going to be looking for some of this signage. I have like a www website up here. I find I can get an awful lot of what I want from CCOHS. I don't know if you've heard of them before or not, but it's a lot of times it's for union workers, but they have great information and it's a great site. So you may want to write this down, and it may be a one-stop shop instead of having to go all over the place to try and find what it is you need. So on the left, we have stop before entering. Make sure you're wearing your mask, that you're washing your hands and you're keeping your distance. They talk about work breaks. Again, this is another time, everybody wants to be social and they're out and they're talking and nobody can hear them. So they take their mask off, and the next thing you know, you've spread COVID. So you want to keep your distance, wash your hands, wear your mask, stay at home if you're sick. That's a huge one. Okay. And the lunchroom experience, this is talking about the distance, washing your hands, and what you need to do in maximum occupancy, trying to figure out how many is the maximum you can have in your lunchroom at a time, and doing a schedule if you're in a workplace that has several lunch hours or several people in it. So do you need any more time for writing this down? But you can get at the slides later anyway. So any questions on COVID? No? Okay. So these are just everyday easy workplace tips. You want to make sure your employees are trained well. Makes a huge difference. It also improves productivity. Make sure you have regular safety inspections, and the person doing the inspecting has an idea of what they're looking for. There's some pretty good training sessions out there about what to look for and hazards. For instance, shelving is a huge accident waiting for a place to happen. Not putting the right things in the right place, Using labels and signs so people are more aware. However, signs everywhere sign, but the more you can label things, the more you can keep things organized, the better. So keep keep things clean and tidy. So there's a saying, everything in its place and a place for everything. And over the years, this has worked for me better than anything else in trying to keep health and safety, accidents down, and productivity up. Because if you can find what you need right away, it makes a huge difference. So also make sure your workers have the right tools and in good working condition. I see this all the time out there where they're using broken tools or making do, and it's just an accident waiting for a place to happen. Also, especially when you're at the desk, what do they say? Sitting is the new smoking. Encourage stretch breaks through the day or rotate the jobs. Okay, so really you're more productive if you can get up, walk around, do a little bit of stretching, and then get back at it again. Sometimes when you just can't get things to work properly, you've worked all day on this program and you just can't seem to get through it, and then you go for a 15-minute walk, come back, and it all falls into place. So you do need these breaks, and especially working from home these days, people are not taking their breaks. They're eating their lunch at their desk, and trying to get it done, and then they get frustrated. So the other thing is, if you're in a workplace where you have workers that are doing what you've asked them to do and are following the rules and are working safely, reward them for their safe work behaviors. It can make a huge difference. So I don't know how I went. Anyway, if you need help, if it's posters you need, policies, procedures, training, help with your joint health and safety committee, that is what I do the most of. Is I go into companies quarterly and sit with them in their health and safety meeting, make sure it's productive. I have the knowledge. They don't have to be searching for what they need to do. Before the meeting, I do an audit, an inspection of their workplace. And quite often, because I know what to look for, I see things that, sorry, the health and safety rep is, because he's in there all the time or she's in there all the time, they don't see it. I do the minutes, and I do what you need to get done, an action plan, and then follow up before the next 3 months comes up. I follow up to make sure that the work is getting done. And wherever possible, I give them the contact information to save them time. And then we rebook, and I make sure the next meeting happens, because too many times work gets in the way and the meeting doesn't happen, and a month goes by, a year goes by, and it doesn't happen. So it only takes one fine from the Ministry of Labor to put you on their watch list. And then they're back again, and they're back again. And if you do happen to get a fine, and depending on what it is, it can be quite high. And if the fine isn't, if the fine isn't it, or if you've had a fairly severe accident, it will be a charge and a huge fine. So if we can help you have some safety peace of mind, we're here. So just going back to the fines, just if you don't have the proper assessment when they come in for COVID blitzes, that's a $750 fine for not having the right assessment form, or for not having the right signage, or if they see somebody talking to somebody else in your workplace without masks on. So that's COVID fines for the worker. And then the workplace fines are even more. I don't know if you heard of any of the fines that happened in Barrie a few months ago, but Walmart and Canadian Tire and a few other stores got some pretty huge fines. So, you want to make sure you're following the protocols. And then if it's a health and safety issue, not COVID related, the fines actually for workers can be anywhere from $250 to $350. So for instance, if a worker refuses to take the awareness training, the Ministry of Labor can charge them anywhere from $250 to $350 each. They call these tickets, and then the supervisor who didn't make sure that training was done would get a $450 to $550 fine. And then management or employer would get $550 to $650 for just those ticket items. This has nothing to do with any accidents or major issues. This is just if they walk in and they find, as they say, they go to the bulletin board and see that you haven't had your meeting in the last 3 months, or there's no inspections on the board, they can fine all of these fines. Now, if there's an accident or something very serious, the fines can go up to $1.5 million. So their fines are pretty high if you have an unsafe work condition. So it is worth, if you're struggling with your health and safety management, if your workers just don't seem to have time to get the minutes done after their meetings, aren't able to follow up, that's what I'm here for, if I can help. So any questions? No?
Actually, I do.
All right.
Sorry, I do. Are we going to get a copy of the slides? Or could we get a copy of the slides?
Sure.
The whole presentation gets put onto the Chamber's YouTube channel.
Okay.
And you can watch it, but if there's specific stuff, I'm pretty sure Veronica can share. I think you're okay with that, right, Veronica?
I am, and I don't know how I managed to get the wrong slideshow. I had more to show you, so I will give you the one that has more on it. But yeah, I do. Worked on it, but somehow it's saved. Well, I don't know, maybe I have 2 of them saved. So yes, you'll be able to find it on YouTube.
I also have a quick question. When you talked about those stores that had been fined for being in non-compliance,
yes,
is that public knowledge? Like, can a person find out about that?
I know
Through
for
the
the sorry,
health
go
unit,
ahead.
I think it's through the health unit you can see the fines. They're actually naming them and telling them fines.
Yeah.
Last time I looked.
And then if it's non-COVID related, there are sites with the Ministry of Labor where you can see who's been in court and who's been charged with what and all that kind of thing. You don't usually find if they're just orders, like if they just walk in and say, hey, you've got till so-and-so time to get a certified member of your committee. But if it's something that goes to court, you definitely can access it.
I actually remember doing tax return for 2 twins who were just turned 18, and they actually left the Barrie Superstore, no frills, because they got fined multiple times and they felt unsafe.
Right.
So.
Wow.
And the Ministry of Labor is really gung-ho. Like the first year, they weren't quite so gung-ho, but now they're out there and they've hired all kinds of extra people plus other organizations, and they're out there doing their blitzes and making sure that companies are being safe. And I mean, now, like for instance, Walmart or Costco or whatever, to make sure that they aren't selling anything more than their food and pharmacy stuff, right? But a lot of them, well, I have a new account because the Ministry of Labor went in, and first off, they had somewhere to sign in, but not the right questions. And then he went out back, and 2 of the technicians were talking to each other without a mask on, and they ended up with an $800 fine. So, and then hired me. So if they'd hired me before, they would have had the $800 fine. So, yeah. And they're out there more than I've ever seen them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's worth being safe. It really is. And it saves you money to have a safe workplace. Your bottom line is protected if you have a safe workplace. But if you don't have a safe workplace, your bottom line isn't protected.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I just
Okay.
can't wait till the day we don't have to wear masks.
I know.
In
Yes.
summer. I walked out of the office to go to get something from Subway in the same plaza, and I was huffing and puffing because that mask was too hot for it being on.
Well, today was so hot and humid too. I mean, without a mask, it's hard to breathe in that humidity. So yeah, it will be good, but when we look at the United States and what a terrible state they were in,
Yep.
I can't figure, sorry. I don't know why I can't turn this off. I certainly have to figure out how. Anyway, it's with the states, look at them. There's so many that don't have to because they're double vaccinated. However, how do you know who's been vaccinated and who hasn't? But that's okay. But we, hope is down the road, and we have lots of vaccines coming, right?
Yeah, it's opening up a lot. It's much better than it was for vaccine access, for sure.
Yeah.
I read a book called, oh, now I can't even, The Code Breaker.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've heard of it. It's about 500 pages long, but it was really interesting. And it's the history of the mRNA vaccine. And I was hesitant about getting a vaccine till I read that book. And now I can't wait to get my second one, right? I think we're going to find it's a game changer for cancer and for all kinds of other diseases, this mRNA science. So I think if people could take the time to get educated and read, I mean, there's a lot of hesitance, and I understand why there's hesitance. And but if they could just read different documentation and different outlooks on it, and I think maybe they could see the benefit. But
Well, that's why I have a registered nurse that I'm living with. She tells me what to do.
It's cute.
And in fact, she gets her second vaccination on Friday, and my 14-year-old goes next Wednesday.
Excellent.
And then we are totally done the first one at least.
That's great.
Mm-hmm.
Even with my parents and my brother and my mother-in-law and my father-in-law and stepmother-in-law, they all have it. So we're heading in the right direction.
Yeah.
Excellent.
I'm just hoping that, and I think it's going to happen, that they're going to open it more up to the general public in the next 2 months. That, I have a date of August 7th that I can probably get it hopefully in July. And I'm hoping to, only because I'm a little bit selfish, because if we go to Algonquin, that's the day I'm supposed to get it. And I really don't want to go to Algonquin and have the second effects of it.
No.
All right.
Okay,
well, thank you so much. We really, really appreciate having you here. And again, we are sharing this on the YouTube channel for the Clearview Chamber, so it's accessible. And then Veronica, if there's anything you'd like to share directly, we can do that as well. Okay, well, I will send you directly the right slideshow. Okay, sure.
Thank you.
All
well,
right,
thank you.
Great night, folks.
Have a great night.
Thanks for joining us.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.